All right, let's dive in. Today we're going deep into the world of operating rooms,
Oh, interesting.
specifically at Stanford Hospital and Clinics. You'll often hear it called SHC.
Okay.
And we're going way back to 2004 for this one,
Wow.
using a Stanford Business School case study as our main source.
Got it.
They were trying to improve efficiency in the OR.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
And what I think is really cool about this case study,
Yeah.
it gives us all these different voices
Oh, interesting.
from the people actually working in the ORs,
Cool.
like surgeons
Oh, wow.
and nurses,
Okay.
the sterile processing department,
Uh-huh.
SPD for short,
SPD. Got it?
and even administrators.
Okay.
So we get to see this like multifaceted view of
Yeah.
what was going on.
That's really cool.
It's almost like a medical mystery, you know?
Uh-huh.
We're going to be piecing together all these little clues
Okay.
to see what's really happening behind the scenes.
Interesting.
And you know what I think is so fascinating about this case? Even though it's from almost 20 years ago,
Yeah.
the challenges they were facing back then are still so relevant today.
I bet.
Because, it's all about navigating these complex systems
Mhm.
and the human side of things,
Right.
how people interact and all that.
Right.
And I'm willing to bet
Yeah.
that you'll even see some parallels to your own work experiences
Oh, for sure.
as we go along.
Cool.
So get ready
Uh-huh.
because we're going to uncover some pretty surprising insights.
Okay, righty.
We're talking instrument hoarding,
Whoa, wait, what?
surgeons with car trunks full of equipment,
Seriously?
and even like competition heating up right in SHC's backyard.
Okay, now I really need to hear more about this.
So to help us unpack all of this, I've
Yeah.
got our expert here.
Hey, everyone.
All right, so let's set the stage here.
Oh,
What was
yeah.
going on at SHC back in 2004?
Wow, SAC is a pretty big deal,
Oh, yeah.
Prestigious, nonprofit teaching hospital.
Yeah.
Known for its centers of excellence. And they were seeing this like surge in demand for surgeries.
Makes sense.
So more and more people needed these procedures.
Okay.
Plus, they had some competition popping up in the local market.
Oh, interesting.
So it was a pretty challenging time for them.
So they're a top-tier hospital,
Yeah.
but they're still facing these pressures
Totally.
that a lot of businesses deal with.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing this all had a pretty significant impact
Oh, yeah.
on their bottom line, right?
For sure. So SXC's leadership,
Oh, yeah.
they knew that the operating room
Uh-huh.
or
Right.
was like a major source of revenue for them.
Bro,
About a third.
wow.
So making the OR more efficient was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't just about the money.
Okay.
They were also seeing this this dip
Yeah.
in physician and staff satisfaction.
Got it.
And there were these growing concerns
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
about inefficiencies.
So basically, they knew they needed to make some changes.
Totally.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you really can't have a successful hospital
No.
without a well-functioning OR.
That's for sure.
It's like the heart of the whole operation.
Exactly.
So what was the core problem?
What was the big issue?
Well, it all boiled down to this constant stream of problems with surgical instruments and supplies.
Oh, wow.
Things like
Yeah.
delays,
Oh.
cancellations.
Oh, no.
And this just created so much tension
Well,
for everyone involved.
So it's not just about
Right.
scalpels and sutures. These like
Yeah.
really basic components
Yeah.
are actually like the foundation of the
Yeah.
entire surgical process.
Absolutely.
So what did the case study
Yeah.
tell us about
Right.
what was causing these issues?
So SHC actually took the initiative
Oh, cool.
and launched a pilot project
Oh.
to try and figure out
Uh-huh.
what was going on.
Okay.
And what they found
Yeah.
was that these inefficiencies weren't coming from like one single source,
Oh.
but rather it was like this chain reaction
Oh, interesting.
of interconnected problems.
That sounds so familiar.
Really?
It's like so many workplaces struggle with that.
I could see that.
This like domino effect
Uh-huh.
where one thing goes wrong
Yeah,
and it just like sets off this whole cascade.
exactly.
So can you give us an example
Sure.
of what this chain reaction
Okay.
would have looked like in action?
All right, so picture this.
Okay.
A surgeon's prepping for a procedure
Uh-huh.
using what's called a preference card.
Okay.
It's basically a list of all the instruments and
Yeah.
supplies that they need.
Okay.
But what if that preference card is inaccurate?
Oh.
Now, the technician who's getting the case cart ready,
Okay.
which is like their surgical toolkit,
Right.
they're picking the wrong items
Oh.
based on bad information.
Right.
And this can lead to delays,
Yeah.
maybe even postponements.
Oh, God.
It really shows how fragile the system is
Yeah.
when even small errors happen.
That's a great example
Yeah.
of how something seemingly small can
I'll
have
give credit.
these, like, huge
Yeah.
ripple effects.
Absolutely.
It seems like SHC's pilot project
Yeah.
was really key in identifying those vulnerabilities.
Definitely.
So what were some of the,
Yeah.
key findings?
Well, they found 6 main culprits.
Okay.
The biggest one,
Yeah.
preference card inaccuracy.
How often was that happen?
30% of the errors.
Wow.
These PCs,
Yeah.
which are basically personalized lists of tools
Okay.
for each surgeon and procedure.
Right.
They were often incomplete or just plain wrong.
Oh, gosh.
Imagine showing up for a cooking competition
Okay.
and realizing your recipe is missing key ingredients.
That's got to be so frustrating.
Oh, for sure.
For everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Were there any other,
Yeah.
big contributors?
Another 30% came from case cart prep errors.
Oh, so the technicians were picking the wrong instruments.
Yep. And it was often because of inaccurate location data
Oh, in their system.
in the system. Exactly.
Okay, so even if the
Yeah.
preference card was right, if the physical location of the instruments didn't match up
Total.
with what the record said,
Yep.
then the system breaks down.
Exactly.
So now we've got these logistical challenges,
Uh-huh.
but it seems like there's also this whole cultural and organizational.
I'll have sign to that as well.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting. But we'll dive into all of that
Okay.
in the next part of our deep dive.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Okay. So we've been talking about all these operational issues Okay. in SHC's operating rooms.
Yeah.
But it feels like
Uh.
there's this whole other layer to this story.
Oh, definitely.
This
Yeah.
cultural and organizational layer.
What did the case study have to say about all that?
Well, one of the things that really jumps out
Yeah.
is how SHC's structure
Okay.
as an academic medical center
Uh-huh.
really played a role in all of this.
Okay. Can you remind me
Sure.
what exactly that means?
So it's not just a hospital.
You're right.
It's also a teaching hospital.
Okay.
So they're training future surgeons,
Uh-huh.
and they're doing all this medical research.
Right.
So it creates this really complex
Yeah.
web of relationships and power dynamics.
So how would that structure
Yeah.
affect what was happening in the OR?
So one thing to remember
Okay.
is that the surgeons
Mhm.
weren't actually employed by SHC.
Oh, interesting.
They were affiliated with
Yeah.
the Stanford University School of Medicine.
Okay.
So that gave them a certain level of autonomy.
I see. So
Yeah.
SHC couldn't just tell them what to do.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
if they weren't happy,
Yeah.
they could always take their patients
Right.
and their revenue.
Elsewhere. So SHC had to be really careful
Oh, yeah.
about how they approached
Totally.
these efficiency improvements.
For sure.
What else was at play here?
Another big factor was the culture
Okay.
at the hospital.
Uh-huh.
It was very siloed.
Siloed.
The surgeons,
Oh,
nurses, and
yeah.
SPD staff,
Oh.
they all had their own priorities,
Yeah.
ways of working,
Yeah.
communication styles.
And that made it really hard to address
Oh, yeah.
these underlying issues.
Totally. It's like
Yeah.
classic case of departments operating in isolation,
Uh-huh.
which always leads to
Oh.
miscommunication,
For sure.
misunderstandings.
So can you paint a picture
Sure.
of what this looked like in practice?
Okay, imagine the OR
Uh-huh.
as a stage.
Okay.
And the surgeons,
Yeah.
they're like the stars of this show.
Right.
They're used to things running smoothly.
Makes sense.
And any delays or disruptions
Yeah.
are met with frustration.
Right. Because in surgery, time is of the essence.
Exactly. And their reputation is
Yeah.
on the line.
And ultimately, patient outcomes, too.
Absolutely.
So where did the nurses fit in?
The nurses were often caught in the middle.
Oh, tough spot.
They had to anticipate the surgeon's needs, manage the instruments and supplies,
Yeah.
and make sure everything was running smoothly.
Wow. Sounds like a lot of pressure.
Oh, it was?
So how did they cope?
Well, some nurses started hoarding instruments.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they'd keep them in their lockers.
So they wouldn't have to deal with
Right.
delays and stuff.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a pretty extreme measure.
It is.
It shows just how much they were willing to do to make sure their patients got the best possible care.
Absolutely.
But it also shows
Yeah.
that there were these deeper issues
Yeah, definitely.
with the system itself.
Totally. There was this lack of trust
Right.
that the system would provide what they needed.
when they needed it.
You
And then you've got the SPD.
Right. The SPD.
The sterile processing department.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are cleaning and sterilizing and assembling all the instruments.
It's a big job.
And it sounds like they were facing their own set of challenges.
Oh, yeah. They had high turnover.
Okay.
They often felt blamed
Oh, no.
when things went wrong.
And they were just struggling
Yep.
to keep up with the demand.
Totally.
So we've got these three groups,
Yikes.
surgeons, nurses, and SPD, all under pressure,
Yep.
and a system that wasn't really supporting them.
Exactly.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much.
So given all of that,
Yeah.
what could SHC actually do to fix this?
Well, the case study outlines a few potential solutions.
Okay, like what?
One option was to focus on the new IT system.
The Pisces system.
Yeah, the Pisces system.
Right, because they were in the process of
So-
implementing that.
Right. And if it worked properly,
Yeah.
it could really streamline things,
Right.
improve tracking, and provide better data.
It sounds like Pisces had the potential
Definitely.
to solve some of the logistical issues.
For sure.
But it feels like technology is only part of the solution here.
It's true. SHC also knew
Yeah.
that they needed to address the cultural and organizational side of things.
Like what specifically?
They needed to break down those silos,
Right.
improve communication,
Yeah.
and create a sense of
Yeah.
collaboration and shared responsibility.
Which is easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, especially
Yeah.
with all those ingrained hierarchies and power dynamics.
Like they had to figure out
Totally.
how to get everyone to work together
Exactly.
towards a common goal.
Yeah, which is something so many organizations struggle with,
For sure.
not just in healthcare.
What other solutions did they look at?
They also considered redesigning the workflow.
Okay.
So, looking at the whole process,
Yeah.
from scheduling the surgeries to handling instruments and supplies,
Okay.
to find ways to make things more efficient.
That sounds like a pretty big undertaking.
Oh, yeah. It would require
Yeah.
a lot of analysis and input from everyone involved.
Did they consider any, like, more drastic measures? They did talk about outsourcing.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe having an external company handle instrument provision.
Had they done that before?
They had outsourced other things,
Okay.
but there were concerns
About
losing control.
of such a critical part of the process.
Exactly.
I can see why that would be a tough decision.
Yeah. Oh, it was a big one.
What about just, like,
Yeah.
hiring more people?
They did explore the idea of more training and cross-training for staff.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, improve skills, flexibility,
Yep.
understanding across departments,
But didn't they have,
pretty high turnover.
especially in the SPD?
Right, so it's like
Yeah.
they were constantly having to retrain people.
Exactly.
So lots of options on the table,
Definitely.
each with its own set of complexities.
For sure.
Did SHC end up picking one?
Well, that's what we'll find out
Okay.
in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about all the problems,
Uh-huh.
and we've talked about some possible solutions.
Right.
But what did SHC actually end up doing?
Well, that's the thing.
Oh,
The case study ends
oh no.
before they make a decision.
So we don't know what they chose.
Nope.
So what's the takeaway here?
Well, I think the real learning comes from analyzing those potential solutions and thinking about SHC's unique context.
Right. So it's not about saying this is the right answer,
Exactly.
but more about giving our listeners the tools to think critically
Okay.
about these kinds of challenges.
Yeah, because they might face
Yeah.
similar situations.
in their own work.
Exactly.
So what are some of the
Mhm.
key things to consider here?
Well, for me, it's how everything's connected.
Right.
You've got technology,
Well,
culture process.
It's all intertwined.
Exactly. And SHC realized
Yeah.
that just putting in the new IT system,
Right. The Pisces system.
yeah, that wasn't going to be enough.
That wouldn't solve everything.
Nope. They also had to deal
And,
with those cultural issues.
right. Like the silos.
Yeah, and the lack of communication.
It's a good reminder that technology can be a great tool, but it's not a magic bullet.
Definitely not.
You can't just
Yeah.
throw software at a problem and expect it to go away.
Exactly. They had to figure out how to change behaviors,
Okay.
mindsets.
It's not just systems.
Right. And that takes
Yeah.
strong leadership,
For sure.
a willingness to challenge the way things are done.
And a real commitment
Yeah.
to collaboration
Acquiring.
amongst departments.
It's like
Yeah.
one of those team building exercises
Okay.
where you have to work together
Mm-hmm.
to solve a puzzle.
Right. But in this case,
Yeah.
the stakes are much higher. It's not just a game.
Oh, for sure. The consequences of failure
Right.
are huge.
Do patient care,
Yeah,
the hospital's finances?
exactly. They had to align everyone's incentives
Okay.
and make sure everyone understood the problem.
And the potential solutions.
Right.
It sounds like those
Yeah,
more drastic options.
like outsourcing.
Yeah, or just spending a ton of money.
Right. Hiring more people, buying more equipment.
You weren't so keen on those.
No. They knew that those might provide some temporary relief,
Okay.
but they wouldn't address the root causes.
So outsourcing could lead to
Yeah.
loss of control, potential risks to quality and safety.
And just throwing money at the problem
Right.
might just make those inefficiencies worse.
So it sounds like they were leaning towards a
Yeah.
more holistic approach.
Right. Something that balanced technology
Yeah.
with those cultural and organizational changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Oh.
Even straightforward problems
Yeah.
often have these deeper human and systemic factors.
No, it's not always as simple
Yeah,
as
but-
it seems on the surface.
You really have to look beyond this
to
surface.
find the real solution.
Exactly.
So for our listeners out there
Yeah.
who are dealing with similar challenges, what's one question they should ask themselves?
I would say,
Okay.
how can I foster a culture
Yeah.
of collaboration and communication?
To address the root causes.
Exactly. Not just the symptoms.
That's a great question.
Thanks.
And a great way to wrap up this deep dive.
I agree.
A huge thank you to our expert
My pleasure.
for sharing your insights,
Anytime.
and to our listeners.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, keep diving deep.